Organize your knowledge, structure it properly, create this fancy name, knowledge graph, and really place data to it and update it regularly and produce content based on it so that people can have all those interactions with you to buy from you, not from your competitors. Hello, I'm Olesia Korobka, and this is SEO in 2026.
Olesia, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
I suggest people prepare small knowledge graphs and use them for their SEO efforts and also for optimizing content for LLMs outputs and AI.
Okay, so small knowledge graphs. What do you mean by small knowledge graphs? And also, I guess many people probably still associate knowledge graphs with Google. How do AI search engines use knowledge graphs?
We know that Google uses knowledge graph also for their AI overviews and also for some answers in AI mode and yes, for their AI because knowledge graphs are facts actually. These entities that they have, these are also factual information about them. So they do use them intensively. And also the search within knowledge graph is much faster than any other search. And the information you get from there is much easier to use for generating any stuff that you want. We used to talk about databases previously. So knowledge graph is a fancy name for a relational database, and that's about it. But when you do something like that, it helps you a lot to get much fewer inaccuracies and to get the more original information. And it's also factually correct. And by small knowledge graph, I mean that you focus only on what you are doing for your own business or for yourself, because you can optimize your own name, you can optimize your company's name, or you can optimize the products or services that you want people to find in search.
And are other AI search engines like ChatGPT using knowledge graphs?
We don't really know, but because we know that they use search, that they use Google search, and they use information from Google search, which is often based on Google's knowledge graph and Google's outputs. Therefore, we may say that they do use that like indirectly without having that like in the infrastructure. But I think that because if you've seen ChatGPT and OpenAI and other Perplexity, they've started to build something like a shopping graph, and they do add information from other people, so they might be building something like that. I'm not fully aware of that, so but I don't know. But I think that it doesn't matter if they do build it or not. It's easier for us to operate if we have something structured like that, our own information that we can use to build content for them. Because, what's the problem with AI outputs? Google had previously published lots of studies on how consumers behave. And we know that there's this rule of 7-11-4. So consumers need 7 hours of engagement across 11 touch points in 4 separate locations. And what AI outputs do with that is that when they give all the information a person needs, we have less interactions with them. So they don't go to our video, they don't go to our article, they don't have this interaction with us maybe at all, because sometimes AI overviews don't even mention the brand they've taken information from. And when we are building these small knowledge graphs, we have an opportunity to build more content, more factually focused content, so that even AI outputs, they reference us more when they use it. So they provide a link to the statistics or to something else. In this way, we can get those interactions that we need to sell to the final consumer.
So has the way that knowledge graphs are created changed much over the last couple of years? And how can an SEO influence a knowledge graph effectively in 2026?
It's somewhat changed, yes, because previously it was very long process, I'd say very boring, because you need to be very accurate. You need to do everything manually. Needed to double check. Now we have AI that can do lots of hard work for us, and we just have to check a bit that it has been done correctly. And we also can gather information much quicker and organize it much swifter and in a much more simple way. Right now, for example, I use LangChain to build LLMs, but I think that with the growth of AI agents, I tried Google for that. Google, maybe you know Google Agent Space. I think it will be available in a few days for everyone. Right now, I'm in a beta version. So Google Agent helps me create a small knowledge graph like in a day, and I can use it right away. So it has become much simpler, much easier.
So, how do you measure the value of creating a knowledge graph?
You do everything faster, and you can produce the content you need and place it in where your potential customers are going. You measure it by having more money from that. So you produce content that converts visitors into customers, and you see this growth of your sales and people buying from you. So that's how I measure.
Okay, got you. Okay. And do you recommend by starting off with defining who a brand is, what they're selling online, positioning it for Google? Why do you actually start off like that?
Yeah, like in my previous talks, I'll swiftly remind is that you start with what you do, what's your positioning on the market, who you do it for, what people will buy from you, what problems do these people have, and what you can offer as a solution. And don't offer too many solutions. They don't need to choose among many options. You offer one solution to one of their problems that they can easily solve, and you create content around that. So you say, my product or my service has these or that features. And here are some examples of our other customers we've solved this problem for, and we did it like that. That helps you to create original, unique content about your product or your service that has all the features that you need to be available for people to understand what you do and how you can help them. Also, you might want to sell something that people have not bought before. And in that way, you just create the descriptive content describing how you can solve that problem, answering to the questions about this problem. So it's kind of much easier to do when you have this knowledge graph because you can even generate content sometimes with that.
Okay, and if you are a business that maybe has lots of different products and services, how do you actually decide on the data that you'd like to start with for a knowledge graph?
You just set the priorities. For example, we know that if we sell this amount of this product, it's our main focus. We get the most of our sales margin on that, and it will help to grow our business and expand. So we'll have more money to sell and expand our business, to hire maybe more people or to do something else. So I just start somewhere where I can get as much money as possible in the shortest period possible so that I can grow from that.
Got you. Okay. And obviously, you can share with Google, other search engines, the relationship between different products and services, different pages on your sites as well. But you need some corroborative evidence from third-party websites. So how do you go about building authority to your knowledge graph?
If you have a very well structured information on your website or the one that you can feed with an API to agents or to LLMs or to anywhere else, it's credible enough if you have a proof that you are there. So you don't sometimes need that many backlinks, especially if you are in a product, some niche. You have a certification which you show to Google. You have registration as a company, you have a registered business, you have certificates about those products or services that you are delivering, and that is enough to be an authority for that. And you have proof that people have already bought it and they left some reviews, and you show them to Google, or Google have them on their own properties, and that is enough. But of course, you need to have these touch points all across the web about you. So it's good to have some articles, it's good to have videos about you and everything else, but it's making it much easier now. And you don't need to go into those shady backlinking tactics as before. So if you do build your brand like that, it's just enough to be surfaced in Google Shopping, for example. But if you are not into product niche or shopping niche, if you do like software as a service or services, yes, you'll need more articles somewhere else, because that kind of graph is not as developed as a product graph, of course. So you use your small knowledge graph to build content for other platforms where your potential consumers can be, and Google has access to them as well. Just describing that.
One of the reasons why you decide you recommend that so brands have knowledge graphs is you can also create content from that. It helps you create original content based upon it. Why is that, and how does it help you do that?
So for additional content that you might want to create with a knowledge graph is when you get more information. You feed the information into the knowledge graph, not only about your existing products and services, but also on how they got used by your existing companies. Each time you have an interaction with a client or with a customer, you get that into your knowledge graph that was their problem and you solved that in that way. And that's kind of the training data for your own small LLMs and the data that you can feed into LLMs as well. That helps you to understand what another aspect you can cover in your content to get more clients like that, if you like that client, of course, because sometimes people may use your product or service to solve their problems in a way that you didn't realize they might be having, and you want all those angles covered when an LLM or any other AI generates output about the problems that people have. So you want to be surfaced there, and therefore you want to get this covered in your content, and you want to have this information in your knowledge graph so that you could do that, and any person could do that. Because like previously, the content was centered around the person who controlled it. Right now, if you have these information organized, anyone can produce any kind of marketing piece or content or whatever else to get this going. So you don't need to remember everything in your head. You can do that by organizing this knowledge and keeping it updated all the time. Also, what is easy in this way is because it will be factually correct. You don't need to think out something or do something, figure out how to do that. You just set the tone of voice, you just set the audience you are going to target with that, and what they like and what they need, and just bring it to them and let LLMs scan this content and use it.
Scan that content and use it, and hopefully that'll give you increased visibility in the LLMs. How do you measure the impact of that increased visibility?
It's very hard because from what I observed in the tools is they have this synthetic data that you cannot actually rely upon. There are, of course, some tools that provide you with the clickstream data, which is also a bit questionable in how they are getting it. It's also not very full. So the impact is very hard to measure, but there are some, like, so to say, tricks that help you do that in by indirect. For example, you see that people started Googling your brand name more often, despite you were not doing anything for them to do that. Also, maybe you have seen Google is today or yesterday, they started having this filter of AI overviews in Google Search Console. I don't know if they announced it already or not, but I hope we can see that from there as well. So in those relations, we might have more data pretty soon, and it will be easier to measure. Right now, it's almost not that it's impossible, but we cannot rely on those measurements that we can get from the tools at the moment. We can only indirectly say that that's because that, and that's it. But you see that right away. You either have sales and have money, or you don't. So if you don't have sales and you don't have money, it's not working for you.
Olesia, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Organize your knowledge, structure it properly, create this fancy name knowledge graph, and really place data to it and update it regularly and produce content based on it so that people can have all those interactions with you to buy from you, not from your competitors.
Olesia Korobka is an SEO entrepreneur at Factually. Find out more over at olesiakorobka.com. Olesia, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.